From Bosstrack, it's Her HypeSquad, a show about amazing women who've made incredible strides as leaders in their industry. They're here to support you in your leadership growth, to encourage you and hype you up as part of your Hype Squad. Hi everyone, welcome back to a new year and new episodes with Her Hype Squad with Bosstrack. I'm your host, Michelle Harris. I'm thrilled to finally share my conversation with Jenn Rivera, founder of Ascender Consulting. Jenn and I talk about lateral leadership, clear communication, professional development, tantrums, and even messy desks. But before we go there, let me give you a brief bio. Jenn Rivera is the founder of Ascender Consulting, where she helps business leaders crush operational bottlenecks and develop communication strategies with their most important stakeholders. Prior to starting her business, Jenn became an award-winning business developer, program manager, and video producer in her corporate roles as Director of Business Development and Director of Operations. Her corporate experience includes leading award-winning programs of between 50 and 200 employees, coaching leaders in grassroots marketing and critical relationship building, and new program development. Her formal education includes a Bachelor of Science in International Business and Management from the University of Tampa and a Master's in Communication from Johns Hopkins University. Most recently, Jenn launched XMZ Society, an educational and professional networking group that champions Gen Xers, Millennials, and Gen Zers looking to propel their professional and personal lives forward. Her goal is to help businesses and rising stars put the priority back on the right people, employees, customers, and communities to lead and succeed. So without further delay, let's get into my conversation with Jenn Rivera. Hi, Jenn. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We're excited to get into our conversation about leading across the organization, something that really doesn't get as much airtime as it should, I don't think. But I'd love to start out. We provided your bio in the beginning, but I'd love for everybody to hear about Jenn Rivera from you directly.
Sure, I agree. Like lateral leadership is definitely not given enough airtime or talked about enough. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. So my background is in grassroots marketing, business development, program development, and operational efficiency. I have a lot of experience in lateral leadership, and that experience has sharpened me as a leader in all areas, I think. More importantly, it's taught me a lot about how to communicate and develop in my leadership and in professional development. I'm certainly passionate about problem identification and problem solving, and then relationship identification and relationship building. Super passionate about those things. And I think that lateral leadership and professional development really are wrapped up in that.
Yeah, thank you for that. And maybe I know you kind of alluded to it in your beginning, but can you tell us a little bit about your leadership experience? I know you were director of operations and you had a couple of other director roles. Can you tell us, how many years of experience, the teams you led?
Yeah, sure. So my leadership experience started way back when. My dad started me in leadership really early on. I was sitting on a local youth advisory board when I was 13. By the time I was 15, I was sitting on that national youth advisory board. And by the time I was 18, I was sitting on a national board of directors. So I think that my leadership started really early on, and I attribute that to my father's insistence that I get into business early on about things that I was passionate about. So I think I became a rising star in my industry because of that. And I say that because I started off in the banking world, primarily in banking, and then shifting over to the credit union side, which they're different. And I went from personal banker to business development executive to director of business development in a pretty short time span. And after I was in that role for a few years, I was recruited into a marketing agency and served as the director of operations. In my roles, I've led teams of 2 to 5 directly, but I've laterally led teams of 15 to 200 through programs that were done across entire organizations.
I love that your dad identified that you were ready at such a young age. I wonder, what were you like as a little girl that made him identify that in you?
I think it was just my personality and my energy, which I think helps me now as well. But I remember when they were looking for people to sit on the youth advisory board, I remember sitting in the room. This was for an organization called Earth Force, and it was an environmental organization that allowed youth to make change. And so I was already in the club, in the chapter in my area, and they came to interview people for youth advisory positions for the local board and then for the national board. And I remember they were talking and I was listening, and I would ask questions and I was smiling and I was nodding. And I just remember a lot of eye contact coming back to me because I was engaged. And I think, body language has a lot to do with relationship building and communication. So maybe that's what it was, my attentiveness.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I know there are some parents listening to this episode, and, it might not be something they're thinking about, that these types of opportunities are available for kids that can get them into leadership or some kind of service position early on. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
So in all of the leadership experience that you've had, like, what were some of the biggest challenges you ran into or faced as a leader?
I think communication primarily. I think I identified really early on that a lot of the issues and the obstacles that would come up in reaching goals had to do with a lack of communication. A lot of the people issues had to do with a lack of communication or band-aid solutions on symptoms of a greater problem, right? So band-aid solutions really common in the corporate world. I'm sure that your listeners, see it all the time. There's a lack of an effort to identify what the heart of the problem is, and then address that. And there's a lot of, well, we're just going to address the symptoms of the problem. And I think that's a communication issue as well. So when it comes to the problems that I did see, I think it stemmed from a lack of communication, whether that was enough communication, the right communication, or communicating to the right people, or we're putting band-aid solutions on a problem that we haven't necessarily called out or we don't want to call out. And so now we're just causing frustration from addressing the symptoms rather than the actual issue.
And I imagine that's what led you to start your consulting business, because you do focus on that very thing.
I do focus on that very thing. So, I never wanted to be a business owner. I loved my corporate roles, and I love helping people. I love relationship building. I really enjoy, working in teams, and big teams too. But when I left my role at the marketing agency to pursue other things, I wanted to get my master's degree. People were reaching out to me asking me if I would kind of freelance and help them with things. And so that turned into growing organically and realizing that, hey, maybe there's something here and maybe it's something I would enjoy. And then I ended up formalizing the business and just helping people with communication problems and identifying those issues.
So, and speaking of communication problems, it kind of leads me to our topic for today, which is leading across organizations. Again, there isn't a whole lot of development thought given to that. And it's something that is so important to be able to get things done, navigate politics, so get people to understand where you're coming from, or the priority of what you're advocating for. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that. Can you kind of tell us what your experience has been there, and what you see as some of the challenges?
For lateral leadership. So, I don't think that it's talked about enough, and I don't think that people develop their professionals to do it. So I'll give you an example. Project managers. Project managers are lateral leaders all the time, right? Because they're managing projects that usually touch other parts of the organization, sometimes touch every aspect of the organization, and they have to complete this project to success, but they're dealing with people that they're not necessarily directly managing. And so they have to rely on their own skills for lateral leadership to get that project in on time, to get quality work from people, all the different aspects of what a project manager does. And I don't like using the word, you'll hear me say lateral leadership or lateral leader a lot, because you're not a lateral manager, right? You're managing a project, but you're a lateral leader, because if you're not leading, then chances are you're not necessarily going to get what you need on time. You're not going to get it to the standard that you're expecting. You're going to miss things from your team members that weren't putting in that extra for you because you're not a leader to them, maybe. There's a lot of things, a lot of nuanced things that can be missed or miscommunicated or under-delivered because of a lack of leadership. So a good visual for people when they think of lateral leadership is to think of that project manager. And we know that we end up in teams working on all kinds of projects, but a lot of issues that we have fall under, have I identified who those key people are that are on this team that I need to rely on and that I can lead? And then how do I build a relationship with them? So in the same illustration, if a project manager is dealing with a super busy department, and every department manager and department head is going to say that their department's busy, right? So if they're dealing with somebody who's stuck on that, where we're just so busy, this is interfering, it's really simple to start developing that, hey, I know that you're really busy and I can totally appreciate that. I have to get this done. I need you to do it. What can I do to make this easier on you to get it done for me? You know, what are those little things? And develop that rapport with them, because if they don't feel like you're doing something for them, it's less likely that they're going to go out of their way to do something for you, even if it's required for them of their job, right? So even if they're on that team for that project management task. So I think that identifying who those key people are, the decision makers, the people who can move something quick for you or get it done or have their team get it done, is really important. And then making sure that you're having that kind of reciprocal relationship with them, not just I need this from you and you have to do it because I'm the project manager and that's the deadline. That's just not a way to interact with people.
Yeah, and you touched on something early on, which it may seem obvious, but maybe not, is you're not a manager. You shouldn't manage, you should lead. Now, how do you think of the difference between a manager, somebody who manages versus somebody who leads?
Yeah, so I think management is important. Management for me is making sure all the things that need to get done are done, right? And there's that meme that goes on around LinkedIn all the time, and it's like management versus leader, and they say managers lead from the back, and then leaders lead from the front. I don't know. I subscribe to that in some form and fashion, but not entirely. I think that all leaders have to be managers in some regard, but you do lead from the front. And so I think it's about being that positive and impactful person that gets their stuff done in a timely manner, in a positive way. And then also making sure that things are getting done on the back end, because you have to as a manager. And I think having that conversation with the people that you work with is important too. Hey, from a manager's perspective, I have to make sure that these things get done. From a leader's perspective, I see that you're struggling with XYZ. What can I do to support you in that? And a lot of it has to do with professional development and making sure that you're leveraging your team, whether that's a direct report or, somebody who you're working with laterally, making sure that your team is leveraged to their strengths and that you're helping to shore up the weaknesses that they might have.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of an example of a project manager reaching out and getting somebody on board with what they need them to accomplish. It sounds really easy, but we've been in positions and know that it's not quite that easy. I mean, what are some strategies that you've used to help build relationships or influence people? I mean, in a project or even outside, just working with the organization.
Yeah, so Ashkash Exantis was one of the youngest credit union CEOs before he retired as a banker. He was 31 years old when he became a CEO. And later on, he's written like a dozen books, and he talks about financial literacy and publishing. But something that he says consistently is you need to have less asking and more telling. Now, there needs to be some context around that, right? Because that can be taken inappropriately. But it's more like you need to listen to what's happening and then say, okay, well, this is what I see, and let me tell you how I think that we can overcome whatever it is, right? So when you're getting that buy-in, you're listening to what's happening with the other person in front of you, listening to their needs, listening to their wants, listening to what's happening between the line when it comes to communication, right? Between the lines. And then you're saying, okay, this is what I'm hearing. And then you repeat that back to them. Is that right? Yes. Okay, great. I think that we can accomplish this by doing X, Y, Z. And there's less kind of asking permission. Well, what if we did this? Or no, hey, I'm telling you, I think I have a really great strategy or a solution for this. I think that it starts with listening, though. And then you tell them, hey, this is how we can overcome this. One of the other things that I think is really important is kind of a strategy that I use, which is connect who are the people that we need to talk to, collect what's the information that everybody needs. What do I know, but you don't know? What do you know that I need to know? Collaborating, whatever the solution is to moving forward, and then communicating. Tell everyone. So such a lack of communication in the corporate world has such a negative impact on efficiency, on growth, on so many things, right? On morale. And you can't climb. I say it's time to climb all the time in my business. You can't climb until you have, connected and collected and collaborated and communicated. And I feel like communication is where we fall short most of the time. So I say you need to explain the process and then explain the purpose. This is what we're going to do based off of all the information that we have. And this is why we're going to do it like that. And that's how you get buy-in. You include the right people in the conversation. And then you tell everyone, even if they weren't part of the conversation, hey, we got all this great information. We came up with this fantastic campaign or solution or idea or event, whatever it is. And this is how we're going to go about it. And this is why we're going to do that. And then you get that buy-in because you're including them in the conversation instead of just coming out of those collaborations and then dictating to everybody, this is what's happening. This is what we all need you to do now. Read these memos and then we're done.
Yeah, I have a couple of things that came to mind as you were talking there. First, going back to listening and hearing what people need and the challenges that other people are faced with and how do we work through, prioritize. It requires a bit of emotional intelligence. Do you talk about that at all as a leader?
Yeah, so I think emotional intelligence is important, but I actually go somewhere very specific with it most times, which is what is your internal self-awareness and your external self-awareness? So internal self-awareness is, I know myself, right? External self-awareness is, I know how my personality and the things that I believe are impacting the people around me. And that's before I get to them or when I'm just meeting them, how I respond to them. So if I meet someone and they are an introvert and very quiet, and I come at them with a bunch of extrovert energy and talking a mile a minute and like I've had 18 cups of coffee, right? Then immediately they're probably going to physically and mentally withdraw from me, right? And so maybe you come at them kind of even keeled and then you respond according to their energy level, right? So that's beyond emotional intelligence, which is the umbrella of this, right? It's that external self-awareness. What I've realized is a lot of people have some self-awareness, but a lot of people don't realize the external self-awareness that they have to have and how they impact other people in the things that they say and the things that they do, their body language. I met somebody at a street festival a few months ago, and it was a friend. We were meeting her and she had had several drinks. And she was so loud when we greeted her that my husband physically backed away from her. And she was, not really all there to notice, but she's, pretty loud anyway. But he was so physically, and my husband's an extreme introvert. He was so physically affected by the volume and the energy from her that he took steps back, right? So I think that there's a less alcohol-induced version of that, where we need to be paying attention to how we affect other people. And that's part of emotional intelligence.
Yeah, and I love that you offered that perspective on emotional intelligence because you're right. It's something that when you read articles, when you're online, you don't really get that part of it a lot. It's more being self-aware, but then how do you then move that forward and understand how you are impacting the other person that you're talking with, which leads me to the other part is with communication. I totally agree. And that is one thing that, we talk about silos in organizations, and people don't share the information that they need to share across the organization. And I think there are, different reasons. Some can be because they don't they don't want to share. They want to kind of keep it, this is ours, and we're not going to share because we don't want it to be disrupted, or, we don't understand that you would add value in understanding that. Or, or sometimes they just don't even think about it, and they don't think about, oh, this thing that we're doing or talking about actually has implications across the organization. So I experienced that my whole 25-year career in leadership. And it's really like, I don't know, like, how do you talk to organizations about breaking that down?
A lot of organizations, so it depends on who you're working with, right? So some people are just money based. How does this impact the bottom line? I try not to work with people like that, if I'm being honest. And the beauty of owning your own business is that you can pick who you work with. I like to work with people who want to better themselves and better their business. And so oftentimes the people that I work with are really open to those conversations. And I think that one of the things that ends up happening is, and you mentioned this earlier, is that they don't realize that it can help. So they don't even realize that they're not doing it right. So I had a client actually last year, was working with another consultant and wanted to do this big campaign that was going to push a lot of people into the doors of their sales centers. And that consultant, who I had connected them to, reached out to me and she said, hey, we want to do this, but I wanted to talk to you about it. And I said, so one of the struggles that we're having is a lack of communication. And there's a lack of communication, not just from the top down to those sales centers, but within those sales centers for the customer service element, right? So if we do this incredible campaign, and she's fabulous, so she would do incredible work for them. We're going to drive all these people into these branches, and we're going to get a lot of negative feedback from a follow-up perspective and a sales customer service perspective. And that wasn't anyone's fault, because they had never been trained on what is this company's standard for customer service, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had to go back, and I ended up building a training program for them and then rolling that out to the entire organization, saying, this is where we're at in sales, or this is where we want to be for service in all of these sales centers. And it was a really great conversation. We had really positive feedback, but then you have to think about the consistency, right? So what we did was we connected, right? And then, we got all the right people in the room, and we did all the collaboration, and we communicated, and we had these amazing conversations. But then you climb, right? And so when you're climbing, part of the conversation is consistency. So are we consistently saying that this is happening? Are we consistently following up to ensure that it's happening, right? And so there's so many different elements to it. And when we have those conversations at that, C-suite level, then it's like, well, I didn't even think about that. It never occurred to me that I had to teach people how to do customer service, or what our standard for customer service is. So I think that it comes back again to communication, and then that professional development piece of, have you developed your people to do this the way that you want to do it? And are you holding them accountable to that standard? Because you can't hold them accountable until you tell them what it is, and keep coaching them through that.
Yeah. And
question.
Yeah, no, it did. Thank you. And I wanted to call this out because I know we talked about it a little bit in terms of the strategy on, getting people on board and, willing to work on something, on a project or something that is an initiative run by a different department, and you need, like, if I'm in finance and I need IT support, like getting them to understand priority. What do you do if you've had the conversation, as you mentioned earlier, and the help and the benefits, understanding where they're coming from, and they still just don't get it? Because I know there are people like that, but it just, you're so what is the answer there? Is there an answer?
Yeah, so I don't know that there's any. I think that you're going to have people who are your problem children, for lack of a better way to say it. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. I mean that they want to do it their way all the time. And this is something that every organization has problems with. We are really good as corporations at promoting people who get the job done in that moment, but they're not necessarily good at leadership or playing well with others, right? That's a problem. That's something that as an organization we have to address. And it's something that is constantly overlooked by by busy executives with high performers who struggle with this, right? So
Yeah.
you can be a high performer and then you suck at communication, right? And a lot of corporations will ignore that.
Mm-hmm.
So how would, in the example that we used earlier, a project manager overcome that? For me, I'm very direct and I'm very transparent. So I'm really comfortable with going to someone and saying, hey, I get that you don't want to do this. I get that this is a pain in your butt and it's something that you're not interested in, but I can't do my job without it. And unfortunately, I have to rely on you. And I say it again, what can I do to make this easier on you? Because now you're impeding the entire project by yourself, right? Like on your own. And then I'll go up the chain of command because I personally have a coach them up or coach them out mentality, but not every chain of command does, right? So I am very quick to, if somebody is holding somebody back and I have gone through every strategy I can think of to get them on board and they're still on board, going to their supervisor and saying, hey, I know this is going to cause an issue and I'm really sorry. These are the things that I've tried to address. What can you do to help me get this done? It's holding back. And do you really want your department to be the reason? You know what I mean? I'm not saying this, but a manager is going to consider that. A leader is going to say, okay, well, I don't want my department to be the one holding them back. And then you can ask for a joint meeting, or if that's not going to be beneficial, then okay, then you can handle it and I'll wait for the product itself, you know, whatever that deadline is. That deadline is. So one of the things that I think, and I know that this is Her Hype Squad, and so I'm hyping you ladies up out there. Women have an issue with being liked versus getting the job done. Get that out of your head. It's great to be liked. It's better to be respected in this instance. Okay. Do not sacrifice the respect that people have for you because you want to be liked. Oh, it's okay, Bobby Joe. Like you can be 2 weeks late on this and then you can cause the project to be 2 weeks. No, Bobby Joe, get it together. Okay. Because just because you want to be liked doesn't mean that you can sacrifice your career or the quality of your products or the deadlines or the budgets or anything because somebody is or isn't going to say something, you know, nice or not nice about you. It's not worth it. Get the job done. At the end of the day, that's what your job is to get something done. So forget being liked if you need to forget being liked for a minute. At the end of the day, your peers and your direct reports will respect you more if you do not allow somebody else to be the reason why they can't get their jobs done, right? There's that other meme that these memes go around LinkedIn and Facebook all the time, and I love them. But it's like something about employee morale. And like nothing will impact employee morale more than watching you put up with a bad employee, right?
Yeah.
And bad behavior in employees. So don't do it. Don't sacrifice your employee morale for one person. It's not worth it.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I love that. I'm going to cut that out and like replay it 3 times in the middle of this podcast. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I think too, when you said how people talk about bringing people up into leadership roles and not necessarily thinking about, do they have the potential for leadership or are they going to be ready for that? And if they're not, can they be coached or developed into that role? A lot of companies obviously don't have that focus, and that's, you know, why Bosstrack exists in some way. And sometimes people can feel like it's hopeless, like, oh, it's the company, like, what can I do? But the good thing is to know that having a longer perspective, it's your role as an up-and-coming manager and leader to recognize all of this. Don't let the company's approach bring you down, and make sure as you continue to climb the ladder that you're promoting a whole new environment. And I think that is important because a lot of times we're thinking about the short term, like what's, you know, in front of me now, how do I manage this now? But we also need to know how we want to be as a leader and what we want to kind of advocate for as we grow in our role. And that's something that you have an impact on. There's so many things I think you can have that perspective on.
Yeah, I think macro vision is really important. So looking long term, looking at the big picture, all of those, whatever those key phrases are and those buzzwords are, they're there for a reason, right? Like we talk about that for a reason. If you can't see your end goal and you get caught up by what's happening right here between you and that goal, that's a problem, right? It's also not to go off on too much of a tangent, but it's also how businesses lose sight of their goals in the middle of the year. I have a client, we were just talking about that. And I said, what did you do for your goals? And he said, I got distracted. He got distracted and he took his team in a completely different direction. And he didn't necessarily accomplish the things that he had set out to do because he got distracted by what was happening right in front of his face. And he couldn't see the goals that he had set for him that were way over here. So don't be distracted. Don't get distracted by the little things. And a lot of people also go down this road of like complaining and things like that. And this is on my website that there's two keys to success. And one of them is like complaining doesn't do anything. Solve the problem, find the problem and solve it. I'm not saying that you can't vent to the right people that are going to hold you accountable to get out of that space that you're in and get the job done. And that's one of the keys that I talk about, and then better relationships make better business, period. Yeah. So work on relationships and then you'll pave the way for those future conversations, those future to-dos.
Yeah. And I've seen so many leaders at a high, like C-suite, get caught off or get, pulled off of their focus on a goal because something does happen in operations or something comes up and it can be a very large company, but then they feel like they need to dig in rather than rely on their teams to kind of focus and handle those things. So I think that's definitely important for especially women or, people reaching more of an executive role as well, is make sure that you are letting your team, actually that's for all levels all levels of leadership, let your team do what they need to do. Don't micromanage, have agreements in place with them and check-ins, but that's what they're there for. They have the expertise and that's why you hired them. So
stop hiring high performers to lead if they're not good leaders.
Right.
Because that's why you keep having to get into that and micromanage and fix the people issues, because you're hiring high performers that can't communicate. Stop doing that. Hire people who are performing at a lower level but can communicate, and then you'll do better.
Yes. Yes. And I want to reiterate what you said earlier about, don't focus on people liking you. Yeah, that is nice. But I think, you can get so caught up in kind of wanting people to like you, and you have this whole, like, one person you're focused on keeping happy, but what you don't realize is that you have this whole other team that is seeing that, and you're trying, and you said this, I mean, you're trying to like make one person happy at the same time, you have all these other people over here that you're bringing down their morale. So yeah, you can't focus on being nice. And I really appreciate you saying that. And it doesn't mean you need to be mean or overly aggressive, but yeah. So I know this might not be a question applicable to you because you started at leadership, leading at such a young age. What do you wish you would have known as a leader when you started out?
Slow down. Yeah. My personality. So I'm on the cusp of being an introvert and an extrovert. So like even preparing for this conversation, right? Like I mentally prepared for it, right? And I'm positive and have all this energy, and people are like, oh, she's a total extrovert. No, I need cave time after I people. Okay. And so one of the things that I end up doing is getting things done quickly. And so sometimes I go too fast. And when you go too fast, you miss things. So there is value in slowing down. It could be slowing down in rushing to get something done early, and then you miss something and it's not done at the highest quality that you thought it would be done. Or it could be knee-jerk reactions that you have. That's one of the fastest ways to broken relationships is knee-jerk reactions. So slow to speak, slow to react, slow to assume. I think that's really important. And I think for me, thank God I've learned that. But it had to do with people telling me that I needed to slow down. And it wasn't something that I learned early on. It's something that I learned later. Slow down.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate that. And you brought up assumptions, like don't make assumptions, like quick assumptions, because, that can quickly lead you down a rabbit hole of somewhere you don't want to be with people. Exactly. We like to talk about the cycle of, if you assume something, if you put something through a negative filter versus a positive filter, and you make that assumption about somebody, they're going to then say, oh, okay, that's what they think of me. I guess I need to do this. And then they're going to start, depending on the situation, relying on
Mhm.
you. And then that's just going to reconfirm your negative thought to begin with. And it's just going to go in this whole cycle where then you have this poor performer that you have to uh,
Mhm.
basically coach out at that point because you've
Yeah.
taken it too far. So,
Yeah. I tell
yeah,
people not to make up stories. Even at the
yes.
C-suite level, like a problem will come up and I'll have a CEO talking to me and saying XYZ. And I'm like, do you know that or are you making that up? Which is it? And most of the time
Yeah.
they're like, well, I'm just assuming, oh, that's a slippery slope to get on, And even
Yes.
when the problem is when you get to a certain level of leadership, and I bet your listeners, I bet they know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that, but when you get to a certain level, you have to stop yourself from assuming that you know it all. You have to keep learning. You have to keep being hungry. You have to keep yourself humble because you don't know it all, right? So I think that that's one of the big things is don't assume that you've got it all and that you're done because you've reached a certain level.
Yes, definitely. Now, what is there something that you've seen in your career that was, in your mind, something that you're like, whoa, that is amazing the way they approach that. I'm learning and I'm going to take that approach on myself, or something that you saw in your career that was just so bad that you learned from that and said, I'm just never going to do that because it turned out so bad. Is there like an experience you can think of?
There's a couple. So from a do's, like something that I've seen that I'm like, hey, I'd like to emulate that. I think process was not something that I necessarily considered early on. There was processes, especially in meetings and things like that, but processes on getting things done efficiently and effectively. When I was working at the credit union as a business development director, my supervisor was all about process. And she didn't process things to death, though. I felt like she had a balance. And so I think that from a do's perspective, even when you're training people, you say, you're going to tell them, then you're going to show them, right? Then they're going to watch you, and then you're going to watch them. She was really good about kind of helping sort out that process without overdoing it. From a don'ts perspective, well, I think that we all have a don'ts example. I think that we need to be really careful with tantrums. And if I'm giving examples, like pushing things off your desk or hitting your desk, or you get to a certain level and people think that they have the right to throw tantrums, but we're not children. And I have said, if my husband can't do it, I won't put up with it in the workplace either. And so don't be that person that everybody looks at and loses respect for you. You're going to lose your credibility. Raising your voice at people is don't get me wrong, be passionate about things, but the way that you showcase that passion is really important. So I think that tantrums, which is what I call them, are inappropriate. I also think that arbitrary, a lot of people like to hide numbers. Stop hiding numbers from your team. Just don't. So we had a state of the business meeting once, and the CEO told the team, this was the amount of dollars that we lost due to human error. And he came really strong and he was really confident in the conversation. And I said, okay, what's the ratio? Because that number could be 0.3%, it could be 3%, it could be 33%. What's the number? Where are we at? Now, if he would have said, hey guys, 2% of our, revenue we lost because of human error. Next year, let's try to get it down to 1.5%. Right? If he would have brought it to that way, approached it that way, then I think that it would have been received differently. But everybody in that room felt like they were getting beat down. Now, and I knew numbers more than they did just because of the position that I held. So I knew that that number wasn't very significant anyway, and that they were doing a great job. But I asked the question because why would you bring an arbitrary number to the table? If you're going to bring numbers to the table to motivate your team to do better, bring numbers to the table and bring it in a positive way. Don't bring arbitrary numbers that nobody understands to the table. So for me, from a leadership perspective, tantrums and that were really important.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I can't imagine if this would happen today, but I know early on in my career, there were instances of people, executives throwing pencils at people. I mean, it's like, can you imagine if like in an organization, people were throwing things at people? I think
So I've heard of that earlier in my career. It was a stapler, which is way worse.
Yes.
But also like slamming your desk or slamming a cabinet or tossing papers off your desk. It's so unprofessional. And your passion does not give you the right to be unprofessional. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I'm not
Yeah.
sorry. It doesn't.
Yeah. I totally agree. And moving the conversation to professional development, what is your take on professional development in the world today?
Yeah, so professional development is a pillar for me. It was a pillar for me no matter where I worked, and it's a pillar for me even as I work for myself. I don't think it's negotiable. I think professional development is it's a non-negotiable aspect of work. Going back to the memes that I always talk about. So there's a meme that goes around and it's the CFO says, what if we pay for professional development and then they leave? And the CEO says, what if we don't and they stay? So that's my take. If you're not developing your people or yourself, you're not setting yourself up to become an organization that's going to continue to grow. You're setting yourself up to be stagnant is what you're doing, because your knowledge in this moment only goes so far. As a leader, as a professional, as an employee, it doesn't matter where you're at in the organization. Your knowledge right now in this specific moment, it has an ending point. So if you are not consistently developing yourself and developing your team, then you're only going to go so far. And maybe you're happy with that. But my question is why? I'm like, go big, don't go home, go big.
Completely agree. And I want to say that unless somebody has like family ties and has reached a position in ways that is outside of, what they've achieved in their career, I've seen everybody that I've seen that has achieved great, those higher level positions has extreme focus on professional development. And they're constantly reading, they're constantly learning, they're going to conferences. And then you read books about the Indra Nooyi, the CEO of Pepsi, and you hear her talk about that as well. It's just like something that you really need to focus on, really continuously developing yourself.
Yeah. So my favorite quote is rise and rise again until lambs become lions. And I got it from the movie Robin Hood. And I was in Italy when I saw the movie. It was like English subtitles in Italian. And I loved it. And it has stuck with me. And that for me is that constant leveling up. And I feel like lion is definitely like my personality, that from a lamb to a lion, it is impactful for my own mental. But I just feel like those layers and peeling back the layers of yourself and growing is really important, because you're just not done. Like even when you think you're done, you're not done. And there's a saying that says, not all readers lead, but all leaders read. And some people might be like, well, I don't like to read. That's great, because there's podcasts. You can listen to an audio book. Like you don't have to read. I love to read, but you don't have to be a reader to be a leader, but you do have to continue to work on professional development and develop your team. So that's where I'm at there.
Totally agree. And I think you might have mentioned somebody earlier, but of course, with Bosstrack, we focus quite a bit on mentorship. So I'd love to find out if you had a mentor that made a difference in your career.
Yeah. So would I say one person? No. I think that I've had a lot of people pour into me, and I've taken things from each of them. So like, I think of Lori, Marissa, Cindy, who I mentioned earlier, Greg. There's been a lot, but I'd say going back to Cindy, who I mentioned earlier, I feel like she helped me round off some of my sharper type A edges. And when I talked about how passion can be misinterpreted, I can be a very direct person. And so when I talk about communicating and taking different approaches, she's really the person who helped me see that and how my passion can be misinterpreted if it's not showcased right. I think that was really significant for me because, like I said, I'm very direct, and it's never been me trying to be mean. It's just me getting to the point quickly. And not everybody takes kindly to that. So when she helped me to understand how a different approach could be more beneficial, I think that really changed a lot in my leadership style.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd love to switch. I know we only have a little bit of time left in our conversation. I'd love to switch over to a few questions that I like to ask all of my guests. And one of them is there something that you do every day that you have to do in the morning, a routine, or in the evening or afternoon that really you say attributes to your wellness?
To my mental well-being and my productivity for sure. I make my bed when I get up, have to make a bed, and my desk, whether it's my physical desk or my like desktop, has to be clean. So I will get anxious and I won't be able to focus and work if everything is a disaster. And I know some people are like, oh, well, there's a method to the madness. Stop making excuses, please, for yourself and everybody else, because that procrastination to get that cleaned and become more organized is preventing you from leveling up. So if you have a messy desk, I got someone for you. Reach out to me and I will help you get organized and be more productive, because I guarantee you that you are missing another level of your own professional development, your own leadership, because of your method to your madness of your desk and your desktop and your 968 tabs that you have open on your internet right now. So yeah, call me and I'll help you, because I promise you it'll do something else for your leadership.
Okay, I'm guilty of having too many tabs open sometimes.
I got
But I definitely agree. I mean, people don't understand like reducing clutter at your desk and having a clear desk. It just like allows you to have such a clear mind. You don't realize subconsciously like all that stuff is like calling to you, even if it's not something you need to work on. It's just something psychological about it.
Yeah, I agree. I founded a professional and educational development group, like a society. It's called XMZ Society. And our last this month actually, so it was our last meeting, was about getting organized. And I already knew the value of it, and I'm relatively organized, but seriously, it kicked my butt in the best way. It really did. So I mean, I just think that you're right. Those things call to you and you don't even realize what they're doing until you're not doing that anymore and you get to this next level and you're like, holy crap, I didn't even realize it.
Yeah. Yeah, I consider myself normally to be very organized as well, but I was so sorry. I really did want to go to that. We had to be somewhere, but I think that I don't know if it's available for a replay. Is it for the
So
listeners?
it's not available for replay yet. I've been
Okay.
recording them. I haven't posted them yet. So I'll
Okay.
end up posting some of these for sure. But man, they're so good. Our next one's on SEO. I'm so excited.
Yeah, if you do, let me know and we'll share it. We'll share it with the audience when you end up putting them out there. So another thing that especially with Her Hype Squad, is we focus on pumping people up and hyping people up. And part of that is, for us is music. And, we have a couple of playlists. We're working on developing our third playlist. I'd love to hear, is there a song that you rely on to get yourself pumped up when you feel you need a little bit of confidence or some motivation for the day?
Can I give you more than one?
Of course, yes.
So Billie Eilish, You Should See Me in a Crown, definitely will get you pumped up. Rise by Katy Perry, good one. There's Nothing Holding Me Back by Shawn Mendes is a good one. And then if you like country, Don't Put Dirt on My Grave Just Yet by Hayden Panettiere. I don't know the actor. It was from Nashville. It's really good. So
Oh, wow. Okay. I don't listen to country, but I'll definitely check that one out because we actually do have country music on our playlist as well. We don't
yeah.
discriminate. It's across the board. But I don't think I've heard the Billie Eilish song, so I
Oh my
definitely have
gosh.
to look for that one.
Those are from my like get pumped. Like if you're ever experiencing self-doubt or if you just need that extra oomph, those are from my playlist that's like get some.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And then something new that we started asking just to kind of help people maybe be more productive in life or, get something more out of life is like, what is the best purchase you've made under $100 in the last year that has kind of changed the way you do things or it made you happy?
Made me happy. Okay, so from a work perspective, I finally got like the Bluetooth keyboard with the Bluetooth mouse. I usually work on my MacBook is a game changer. And I got a riser for my MacBook. And so I live between two countries. So I have two offices. And for less than $100, I have, those things. And then if you can squeeze in an extra monitor, I just think that that's a game changer for like working productively and comfortably. For me personally, under $100, I think Alexa just keeps me keeps me together. So if you can get an Echo Dot or whatever your thing is, she plays my music when I need to get hype. I can tell her to remind me to do something, add something to my shopping list. At night, she plays my white noise for me. Like, I just think that if you are not like into the conspiracy of technology, don't have an issue with the fact that she probably really is listening all the time, Alexa is like my best friend. I would take her everywhere with me if I could.
Yeah, that's so funny. This is the second time that Alexa came up as an answer. So, so that's it, and it makes a great Christmas gift if you still need something. Well, this will come out after Christmas, but yeah, the dots are not very expensive at all. That we rely on our Alexas as well. We have a couple of them around the house.
I think it was a game changer when we got those, and I feel like I keep getting more to put in all the rooms.
And I know you talked about, you really enjoy reading. Is there a book or a podcast that you've listened to or read recently that you would highly recommend to our audience?
Yeah, so I really I'm not sure if you're familiar with Michael Hyatt. He's a productivity and leadership guy, just great stuff. And his organization is now doing these full focus planners. So they have the fullfocus.co is the website, and the podcast is called Focus on This, and it's all about productivity and leadership. Now, they reference that full focus planner a lot in it. And if you are into handwritten planners, highly recommend it. But the podcast itself, whether or not you use the planner, I think is just fantastic. His books are great too. He has one called No Fail Communication. Michael Hyatt wrote it. So I just think, yeah, find somebody who you really like and share all of the books and all the podcasts with all of us, because that's what I do too. Fullfocus.co is the website, and then Focus on This is the podcast. Really good.
Perfect. Yeah. Actually, I have not come across his name before, and so I will definitely check him out. And yeah, we do. Once we get through books ourselves, we have a page called Books We Recommend, just because people were going through our courses and then they were like, well, how do we continue? I mean, besides the community that we have online, how can we learn more? Maybe like, what are some books that we can read that will strengthen? And so we do like to recommend books for different topics so people can continue their professional development journey.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you ask for more, right?
Yes. So thank you. I appreciate all the time you've given us, and I know it's getting late on your end. As you said, you're working from a different continent. So I'd love for you to, if you have any closing thoughts, share those with the listeners. And then if you're okay with listeners reaching out to you, what's the best place for them to find you and talk with you?
Sure. So closing thoughts. I mean, I feel like if you're already listening to Her HypeSquad, then you're committed to your own professional development, which is great. So just keep that climb going, right? And then how to find me online. So my website is ascenderconsulting.com. And that's ASCENDER consulting. My Instagram is also ascender.consulting. And then on LinkedIn, it's Jenn Ascender. So feel free to reach out to me if we have similar interests or thoughts, or if you have questions or anything. I'm all about relationship building as well. So I always like to grow my network.
Well, thank you, Jenn. I appreciate, again, your time, and it's been such a great conversation, such an important topic. So I've enjoyed, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great. Well, enjoy your enjoy your evening, and and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Michelle again. Just one more thing before you take off. If you've enjoyed this podcast, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Bosstrack, or sign up for our free weekly newsletter. It's easy to sign up and easy to cancel. Every Monday, we send out a short, exclusive newsletter of what we found during the week that we're excited about, we're inspired by, and we're watching and reading. If you'd like to check it out, just to go to thebosstrack.com/newsletter. Just type that into your browser, thebosstrack.com/newsletter. Drop in your email and you'll get the very next one. Thanks for listening.